Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Life on the Hulls. And as you can see, I'm sitting here on Janet and my Christmas present to each other, our dinette module lounge suite. And Pete Woodlands at Woodlands Upholstery, local guy here, has done just an amazing job producing this very, very high quality lounge suite for us. We're so happy with it. It started with me making the framework. He took it away, we brought the foam back, we checked the shape, we checked everything we liked, and then he went away and he's fabricated this thing. It's in 6 pieces, so I can remove elements of it to get access to storage, to get access to the battery compartment beneath it. So happy with it. And the only thing is, though, it's the first time I've actually sat on it, as I haven't had clothes clean enough to be sat on it. And I'm just reminded of the fact that Janet said to me, you know what I'll do to you if I see you sitting on it in your work clothes? And I said to her, well, you'll have to sew them back on first, Janet. Anyway, this week we're going to get right into spraying out the internal linings of the boat, those integrations in where the walls meet and where those lining boards met. It was such a good result. I'm also going to be working in the sugar scoops and basically tying in those rudder bearing housings are very, very important that we do that correctly. And then finally, I'm going to then introduce you to our very controversial bow modifications. Now, we had a number of ways we could approach this. However, the last few boats that they brought out of the mold when this boat was in production essentially had to have a massive modification at the end. This particular design has got a buoyancy issue, and as I've extended it as well, I've actually made that potentially worse. I had to compensate in the bow, so I've done a huge modification down the front. It's all completed down the front here. You just have to wait to see the final result. But I'm going to introduce you to how I'm actually going to address it, and certainly bring you through the steps over the coming weeks. And yeah, I hope you'll accept it. There's going to be a lot of discussion about it over the internet, and you know, I do actually love that discussion because it opens up my mind as well to other possibilities as well. I want to thank you all for watching. We hit 25,000 subs this month, and so stoked to get over that imaginary barrier. I guess I'm not really sure what that means for the channel. Don't think it means anything. Just keep watching it. Watch as much of it as you can. I know they're hammering it with ads at the moment, but we really have no choice with how that presents itself. So I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. It's Christmas week here. We've had a run of 42-degree days here, and it has been stinking hot in here. I've actually just installed a fan, a Catamaran Sirocco 2 fan, just to keep me a little bit cooler while Janet's up in the factory working with air conditioning. So God love her. Thanks for joining us, guys. Happy Christmas, and let's get into it.
So about a month ago, I installed these rudder bearings and made sure they were dead centre. And I just put a little bit of technical around the bottom just to hold it in place. Now the thing is, I'm actually going to put in a fillet of epoxy here, and then we're going to do a tabbing schedule 1, 2, 3 out with 4 layers of double bias 600, and then I'm ultimately going to come back and then start to continue up around the shaft up to about 100 mil all the way down, and then we're going to strap the bearing to the bulkhead. And I need to prepare my surface. This is a polyester tube, so I need to make sure that I have a bit of acetone on it just to prime it. And that's going to get very sticky now, ready to accept the epoxy. I'm pretty excited about getting these in permanently because that means I can start to finish out the entire stern section here. Alright, so that's prepped. And we've got our, this is Cavasil and epoxy. It's a 5-to-1. It's already heating up, so I'm going to get it on pretty quick. All right, it's next day. I've come in and this has had, I'll just give you a rundown of the laminate schedule. Get a fillet of epoxy and cabosil in here, and then we have 2 big discs of 600 double bias, 2 wraps around the apron, and then another 2 layers of 600 double bias over it. So that's actually adhering to the hull itself, and as you can see there's very little movement now. It's rock solid, and I've just ripped the peel ply off. My next move is to laminate it right back into the foam here, 50mm back here, so there'll be 2 more layers in here to tie it onto the foam, and then another 2 out here, and then a final strip around the outside with another 2 wraps around the center, and that should finish it. And then what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to put the bulkhead in, and then I'm going to put a small brace or a gusset down in the center here to stop any forward or backward movement, and this will be strapped to the bulkhead, never to move again.
All right, this is the last of the 2 gel coat lining sheets. I've bought the boss in. How good's that? The last 2.
No more plastic bags on my feet, hopefully.
I neglected to tell Janet I've still got a couple of foam sheets we need to lay up. But I can do them. They're not that hard. These are the hard ones. So I've been in here yesterday. I sprayed up the gel coat yesterday. And I'm back to the HVLP gun. I went off to the dump gun for a while, but you just can't get a finish like this with the dump gun. It tends to just, the popcorn gun tends to just spray it everywhere, and if you haven't got quite the compressor pressure, and I've got the volume, I just don't seem to have the volume enough just to get that material out, particularly when it's cold. So these 2 sheets are ready to lay up. We're going to laminate them up now, and that will hopefully be the end of the internal lining sheets. That's 16 sheets we've made to do the whole boat, with around about, I reckon, around 40% wastage. So pretty sad to see that wastage, but I will use a lot of that flat sheet in smaller areas around the boat. I was thinking today I could actually line the inside of some cupboards with some of the white sheet that I have, and that'll give you a nice smooth surface, but we'll see how that goes anyway. Right, I've been working all day and I've had just no winds today. A shocking day. I've made another base plate for our windlass and obviously cut the hole there for the wiring. And the other thing I've done here is I've actually put in a conduit which is running down into the back of our bed head. So I need to make sure that's pretty secure, and I also need to seal the plywood around the edge. So I'm going to pipe some epoxy in and glue that in place, and then lay this base plate over the top, and that's going to make it pretty damn strong. And basically I've drilled the first 2 holes here. Don't know how I'm going to drill those holes there. I think I've got a 90-degree drill somewhere, drill head or drill bit, and basically then I'm going to backfill all of that so that that's totally sealed. Any water that gets under the windlass, which it shouldn't, because I'm going to actually seal it in with some Sikaflex of 5200 or something. No, potentially not 5200, maybe Fixed Tech. Glue it onto this base plate. And once I've finished the entire inside of this windlass hatch, because it all has to be flow coated out or epoxy painted out. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do yet, but I'll basically paint the whole surface out, probably leave this red. This is actually a piece of the mould, so it's nice to have a couple of remnants of the mould in the actual boat. I'm reusing glass rather than manufacturing another one. It's a perfect piece of 1 centimetre thick solid glass. It does have a little bit of cool mat in it, but the windlass will sit perfectly on there, and I'll get that glued in now, and then basically I can come back tomorrow and start to finish out this hatch. I've got Janet on the job. She's masking up. We've actually got to the point where we're going to consider spraying everything, and we're going to basically cover everything over. But covering all of my nice white gel coat is very important before I come in here and try to spray. So Janet's just taping everything up on all the panels. As you can see in here, we've got a lot of masking. We've got a share in a masking tape company, Janet.
Sorry?
We've got a share in a masking tape company.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically just covering over, and I've left all the internal window tape on just so we can make sure we don't end up any overspray on it as well. Anything else we can pretty much polish out, but if you see here I can actually just simply spray down here with my HVLP gun and finish these corners, and then we can remove the first part of masking tape without removing the covering. Very important to get all this covering on so that we don't create extra work, and she's done a brilliant job here.
Extra work for me.
Extra work for Janet, yeah. And we don't want to create any extra work for you, Joan, do we?
No, well, you keep saying, oh, you can polish it out. But I don't want to polish it out. I'd rather do this.
Oh, you'd love it. Hand polishing is your gig. So this margin here basically just means I can simply spray this, and then this is going to have a laminate on it as well. So we're pretty much ready to go. This is great. So we're down here on the port side, same deal. Plenty of masking on here. Not too worried about getting a bit of overspray on the Raptor because ultimately it's already got a texture on it. Yeah, it's pretty dark in here, but we've done the same all the way through here, just letting me get the ability to be able to just come in and spray without too much extra effort. Well, it's a very dark and dreary morning here on the boat, and I've come up this morning and Janet has spent all weekend masking up pretty much the entire insides or the interior of the boat to make sure that I can come in and now spray some flow coat on the fairing joints on all of our joints where our modules meet, our lining boards are meeting, and that'll pretty much complete it. Hopefully that'll be enough if I can get that spray on today, and in the next couple of days we can come back and polish that back, and hopefully just some tiny little touch-ups after that. We are going to leave the masking on for some time until I work out whether or not I need to come back and reapply some flow coat. But for now, this room here is ready to spray. I've got my gun ready. I'm going to mix up some flow coat. I'm just going to do certain sections at a time, basically working from far away all the way down, and then do the floor last before I exit my way out of this room. It's going to be a little bit smelly, and I'm going to basically get in and do it before lunchtime, and then hopefully this afternoon we can come back and finish it up. But yeah, this is going to basically complete this room from a point of view of cosmetics, and then we can come in and basically do some minor chip repairs, a bit of polishing, and Janet can come in then and start to wet sand and polish out the whole room to get ready for some soft furnishings, which is pretty exciting for us. The only thing we really need to do in this room is the main bulkhead here. It needs to have its laminate, its Tasmanian oak laminate actually glued to that, and then some final woodwork, and then we're into the final outfitting of this room. Well, that was quite successful. I've successfully sprayed all of the fairing margins on the floor here, down the side here. Now this is going to need a good sand. We need to give it a light sand before we can do our final spray up with the flow coat. But as you can see, what has happened now is they're all integrated. So all these internal lining boards are now all technically one piece. They're all glassed together, faired, sprayed, and now quick sand. Once it's all set up, it's all still pretty wet here, and then we'll be able to come in and do one final light mist of flow coat, and then we can get down and buff it all, and pretty much Janet and I will get in and wet sand all of these modules because they're absolutely filthy. You just wet sand to 1200 grit and then buff them out with the buffer, and this room will be finished. I am going to sand the bed base here and just give it one coat of flow coat rolled. I only put it in here to keep it all neat and to start to integrate it all, but it is going to need one more coating, but it is going to have a mattress on it. There'll be the carpet on each side of the bed here, on each side of the island here, basically to make it easy to get in and out of bed and the like. And we did check out a mattress the other day at the boat show, which is pretty amazing stuff, so we're going to get that ordered in the next few weeks. Finally got the mixer back. Pretty happy about that. Janet's been masking up for the last few days. Righto, we smashed out the port side cabin about an hour ago, and that's looking pretty good. I've got all the margins all flow coated, and I've done the windlass insert up there.
I was actually worried how that was going to turn out. I think that's going to polish up nice and look like it was actually always belonged there. You always worry when you cut into a room like that and put something like that, it was going to be a pretty ugly affair, but that actually turned out really good. And then I've done down along here, along the floor, and around the base of this double companionway, finally integrated in, and now that's looking absolutely superb. Basically all the walls. So we can now come in tomorrow once it's all hardened, and it's already hardened over on the starboard side that I did earlier this morning, and we can polish it out, and then we can come back and have another spray. An old Kofolotsky over here. Since I got back from NZ, she's been crook. Like, I was crook for about a week, and I just worked through it and probably made myself worse, but Janet has not stopped coughing since we got back. It's been an absolute beast of a cough. You right, Darren?
Yeah, done.
You better now? Had a good hack? Righto. Last bit. We've got a little bit to do here. Nice bit of spray to do here, just to get this bit integrated. Down on the floor, down in here. Oh, I didn't vacuum it. You have to vacuum that. And then down in the back cabin here, down on the back wall here. And here, now I've still got to make this piece here. Nice to get this sort of work done all in one day. The preparation is just epic, and spraying doesn't take long. It's just you've got to have someone just feeding you the resin all the time. There goes Kofolotsky again. Well, here I am under the bow, and I'm trying to work out how to increase the buoyancy of the bow. We know this boat has some buoyancy issues, and the solution to the last one they made was whack some whacking great bulbs on it. I'm not keen on that idea, so I've come across the idea of extending the bows. Now I can't go too far because I don't firstly want to increase the overall length of the boat. I certainly don't want to increase the waterline too much because it's already a reasonably long boat. So when I cut up the mould, I've kept the very bows of them to be able to assist me in this process, and what I've actually come up with is this idea. I'm going to place a stem along the bottom here. You can see here my laser's actually keeping the rocker consistent with the existing boat. I don't want to lose the rocker, but I certainly want to cut a bit of it out as well because I need to increase the buoyancy forward, and I'm going to have to fill this area here with foam to make it sort of give it the buoyancy required to keep it from too much excessive pitching and also from nosediving. And I've decided that this is about where I'm going to extend this out to, and that is around about 40 centimeters forward of the existing boat, and then bring the bow down. Right, my whole basis of this buoyancy modification is to build a strong back, which I've actually glued onto the bottom of the boat here. You can see here the laser actually indicating my baseline along the hull line. Now what I've actually done, I've made 350mm round acrylic discs that I'm going to use as templates to make foam skeleton, so to speak, to use on this strong back. You can see I've already marked the verticals all the way along here, all the way to a vanishing point around about 2.4 meters back from the new bow that I've established, which is 40 centimeters forward of the existing bow. The next thing I've done is I've made templates for each of these stations, and these will be transferred onto laminated foam, which will form the basis of a solid core that will then be infilled, and then I'll be able to sand back to each of the edge of these stations to establish a new buoyant chamber of 350mm all the way along to this point here, as I said, 2.4 meters back from the bow. Now the last boat they made actually had a 450mm sausage, basically, or a tube, bolted on to the bottom of the boat here, and I imagine it actually came in, it was around about, you know, a big circle right here on the hull here. But the problem with that is that firstly it is huge, and it would also affect this boat's ability to be able to move through the water as a sailboat. I've also, where the laser is forming along the baseline there, I've actually established a rocker line off the rise in the rocker here. So I'm actually lifting the bow as we're moving forward, but establishing buoyancy so that we can make sure that we don't have a boat that sits too nose heavy. Once I add a mast and you know, 200 or 300 kilos of chain, we're going to have quite a significant problem up in the bow here. And this isn't because we've got a solid bridge deck, it's because the original design of this boat had a flaw in the buoyancy in the bow, and I've alluded to it a few times, but this is how I'm actually going to solve it, and it's a long process to actually get to this stage. But what I'll establish here is my baseline. I'll be able to fabricate this part that you see in front of me here up in the factory out of foam, laminated foam, and then be able to add infilled foam, shape it back, and then I can glue it onto the bottom of the boat, laminate it on, and then we can basically go through our epoxy barrier coats and the like. This will all be made of vinyl ester to ensure that I don't end up with any osmosis issues in this part, and it will be entirely sacrificial, forming a complete crash bulkhead in addition to our existing crash bulkhead that we already have in the boat. I've actually picked an arbitrary point 50 centimeters up from the bottom of the hull, from the keel line, and I have to maintain that exactly along the same reference and rocker to make sure that I get this to tie in. So what I'm actually envisaging is where this buoyancy comes in is then to increase this and radius it in here around about at the 50 centimeter line, which will give me additional buoyancy here that will make up for the fact that I've actually reduced the size of the bulb. Now this is all a little bit of guesswork, but I'm actually looking for more of a tulip shape in this hull rather than a physical bulb. I don't want just I could just glass this as it is around in a circle, but if I tend to tie this in, I think I can actually get a much more desirable look. The final part of this is adding the fairing to the edge of the bulb. I don't want to just have a circular tube. I need to basically gain a bit more buoyancy to compensate for the slightly smaller bulb that I'm going to put on this boat, or the tulip bow, and I'm actually doing that by adding some side pieces. In here, mate. Johnny's just arrived right on time to give me the verdict.
Yeah, it's too windy.
It's windy, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks impressive.
So what do you think of this? You can't work it out, I don't think.
You're going to put the foam in between.
I've just laid up 2 sheets of foam, 25mm foam, with glass on each side. I'm going to make a strong back, which will be just this piece,
Right.
and the bottom piece along the bottom there. Then I'm going to make these templates, and they're going to be cut out of foam as well and put on where these templates go. And then ultimately, I'm just going to be able to stick it on and then fill the rest with foam, just strips of foam, and then shape it back.
Well, why don't you put a block of foam in there now?
No, I'm going to wait until I've got this.
Shape it to that.
No, I'm going to wait until I've got the skeleton in, because then I can just run a straight edge sanding block all the way around it,
Right.
like that.
Right.
And these, because they'll have a sharp edge on them like this,
Yes. You'll know when you're there.
I'll know when I've hit that
Yes. Righto.
point. I'm going to pull apart this whole structure now, take it up into the factory and start to fabricate all of these pieces. I'm going to have to do 20 of the stations, and also a new bow stem and new stem or strong back along the bottom there to attach these stations to. These will actually be made of 25mm cord foam with laminate on each side, so these particular parts are rigid. The remainder will be just soft foam that I can shape back to the ribs. Pretty basic boat building, but the thing is, this is going to be one solid block of foam and entirely sacrificial. I've just templated in to fill in any gaps that I've got here to make sure that I get a pretty true template of the stem. I'm happy with the forward shape, and that little small bulb at the front will hopefully be it.